There are two sides to every story. The National Broadcasting Company presents the vivid drama of life itself. Broadcasting's original program of Mediation, the Court of Human Relations. And now the man who has familiarized millions of people with the idea of mediation helped to make it a creative force in American life. A.L. Alexander.
All of us know that there is no peace, no joy, to approach the happiness of a home life that is harmonious, just as there is no misery, no wretchedness to compare with that which grows out of a home touched by discord and disharmony. Now, it's been written that a happy family is but an earlier heaven. Now, how do you attain this earlier heaven? That's what we're here to find out. And what we need is to tackle this disagreement, the attempted settlement of which you are now about to witness, with some insight, which, if it is to be helpful, must come from an impartial source. Now, I recall that it was John Ruskin who said, "Hundreds of people can talk for one who can think, and thousands can think for one who can really see." We welcome one of our most perceptive boards, Miss Virginia Peterson, Dr. L. Wendell Fifield, Judge William A. Wachenfeld. Now, here is case number 5802, and here is the complainant.
Mr. Alexander and members of the board, do you feel that a presumed handicap is sufficient to interfere with a marriage when two people are deeply in love? I'm a girl 20 years old, and I came to New York from a much smaller town about 3 years ago to try to find my place career-wise. And naturally I met many young men, but it wasn't until I met this man that I knew that I was truly in love. And, well, we saw a great deal of each other frequently for over 2 years or so, and he proposed to me about 6 months ago. I love him, and I want to be married to him.
Well, if there is a mutual attraction, and you love him, and you want to marry him, what is the issue?
Well, there's a difference between us in that I want to be married now, and he insists that we wait for reasons that I, consider completely unnecessary.
Well, isn't it customary to have a period of engagement, a period of waiting?
Well, we have waited for some time. And, well, aside from that, if this were an ordinary case, I could understand waiting, but this isn't an ordinary case. The point is that his reasons for waiting are ones that I consider entirely unwarranted.
What are your feelings for this man?
I love this man with all my body and soul. I want him for what he is, and I want him now. This is what I would like settled.
Well, now, suppose we hear from the respondent.
Well, it is my feeling that in this country, I live in this country, so I'll speak about this country, marriage oftentimes is taken much too lightly. And people go into a marriage without a frankness and an honesty, not just to each other, but to themselves. And they go into a marriage without feeling or thought of consequence. They just go into it because the thought of marriage sounds nice.
Well, what do you think this young woman is? How would you characterize her attitude?
Well, she has a lovely, sweet attitude, but she just doesn't seem to understand what the problem is here. She doesn't have a full understanding of what the problem is.
Well, she says that there's a question of delay involved here. She wants to marry you, and she wants to marry you now. She knows you, and you've been keeping company for some time. What about this question of delay?
Well, the delay involves my weight. I have a weight problem, and I don't feel marriage at this time would help, and would be good, would be right.
Why?
Well, having a weight problem, it's hard to understand if you haven't got one yourself. The emotional and physical stress that is placed on a person when he's overweight can become very involved, and I don't want to belabor this to this girl whom I love very much. I wouldn't expose her to it.
As a matter of fact, you're in a somewhat peculiar position, aren't you?
I'm in a very peculiar position because I'm here arguing against the one thing I want more than anything in the world, which is to marry this girl. I love her.
In other words, what is involved here? Not the question of marriage,
No, it's just a question of my weight and losing it.
And also the question of time?
Just a small amount of time.
Well, now, how long a time would it take?
I figure this can be done with medically and by proper diet within a year.
Well, suppose you tell us, it's not as simple as that. Suppose you tell us what your position is in this matter so the mediators can view it, the situation objectively. Tell us how you feel.
I love this girl very much. I want to and will marry her. And I'm just overwhelmed with the regard for which she holds me. This is quite flattering, and it's a wonderful feeling. But it's not that simple. We have a problem here that if it was something else, if I were ill and unchangeably ill, we would have to either recognize that fact and work through it and marry or not marry. But the point is, I'm in a position that my situation can change.
And how long did you say it would take to change it?
I figure I can do this within a year.
And that's what you suggested to this young woman?
Yes, I did.
And she can't see that or understand that?
Well, it makes no difference to me whether he weighs 200 or 300 or 1,000 pounds. This is not the point. But if he does feel that this waiting is necessary, if it is necessary for him to lose weight, I don't see why our marriage has to be delayed. I don't see why we cannot be married and have him let me help him lose this weight in the first year of our marriage. All people have problems to undertake in their first year of marriage, particularly, and they share them. And I don't see why we can't do the same.
And do you feel that his objection or reason for not marrying you is a valid one?
No, I do not feel it is a good one in view of my feelings for him.
What about this question of sharing? This young woman raises the point, which might be considered valid, that one of the purposes of marriage is to share problems and share burdens and responsibilities and challenges, and this certainly is a challenge. Why can't she share this with you?
Well, true. I mean, I believe in sharing also, but the first year of a marriage is a difficult year as it is. Just the natural tensions of two people getting to know one another are involved enough without complicating it further, and I feel that my weight would complicate it.
You mentioned that a number of times, and I think it's only fair to this board to explore a little bit. Would you be kind enough to tell us just how? I think it's clear that there are many problems for a person that is tremendously overweight, and certainly you are. But is this physical as well as emotional, or emotional as well as physical? And are there many aspects of your daily life that you could enumerate which would encumber and involve a marriage in a way that she does not understand because she's never been married to a person in a similar situation?
Or any situation. It's a matter that I am self-conscious about my weight. There's no question about it. I don't kid myself. I'm aware of my weight at all times. I'm aware of it when I walk in the street, and I do attract attention, so to speak. And it's a matter of realizing that there is something that bothers me about it. Now, it's not something that I would want to work through either, because to work through is to have it. Now, if I ever reached that point where I'd work through my weight problem, I would just have it. This way, as long as it still bothers me, I'll do something about it.
Well, specifically, you have a girl, you're tremendously in love with her, you have incentive here. Certainly this is a very charming and attractive girl, and you want to marry her, and you now feel that you want to lose a great deal of weight with this tremendous incentive. You say it'll take a year to do it.
That's right.
And you can't do it in much less. Now, what about that?
Well, if his weight had made any difference to me in the first place, I wouldn't have been interested in him at all. And I don't see that there's any use postponing a marriage because of this, because whether he will weigh more or less in a year is not going to make the least bit of difference to me. I love this man for what he is, and I love him, and I want to marry him now. And as I say, we've been going together for a long time, so I think there's no point in waiting this much longer.
Well, that's very clear. You'll never hear a more forthright statement of love. This girl says she loves you, that she wants you. Now, what about it?
Well, I love her too. There's no question. I do love her. and I'm going to marry her. But her feelings in this matter do not change the facts. There are facts here.
We'd like to ask this question of you before placing this matter in the hands of the mediators. Has medical examination indicated that there is any glandular situation here?
No, it's completely emotional. It's my own emotional problem. It's not a physical. It's not a sickness of any kind.
Well, it's a physical problem that's come about as a result of an emotional
That's
problem.
right.
Would you say that this is a case of obesity?
That's right. It's a clear-cut case of overweight, which is obesity.
And you can reduce with discipline and diet?
That's correct.
And you figure that it would take about a year?
Just about a year.
How do you feel about that, Dr. Fifield?
As always, I'm interested in the question of a successful marriage. I think there are the possibilities of one here. But a successful marriage is based upon the willingness to sacrifice. Now, it seems to me that this gentleman in the case has got a pretty clear and realistic and accurate picture of the situation. And I think he is really giving quite a compliment to this young lady in the fact that he is willing to undergo this reduction for a year, which isn't an easy thing to do. I've had to do it a little bit now and again myself, to undergo that for this year's period, and also to refrain from the marital home activities at the same time in order to protect her and in order to protect her attitude toward him. Now, she says it doesn't make any difference to her, but it'll make a difference to him if he isn't given this chance to do what he feels to be the big thing for the sake of his home.
Well, are you saying then that that's a good reason for postponing the marriage?
I think it is, yes.
Do you agree with that, Judge Walkenfeld?
No, I have a great deal of admiration from this man as I listen to him and as I hear him express his thoughts and his admiration for this girl. And I think he means every word of it because he's willing to go on a strict diet and accomplish what he thinks should be accomplished so that his marriage can be consummated. He's unfortunate in one respect, but very fortunate in another to have the love and admiration and affection of a beautiful girl such as this girl who is before us.
Well, we addressed the respondent. Are there any questions that you'd like to direct to Judge Walkenfeld?
Yes, Judge, you mentioned that there was one thing which was admirable, or one thing that was fortunate in the situation. What did you mean that was not fortunate? You said...
Well, I started to say that you are afraid that your dimensions will mar this marriage that you are very anxious to consummate. And on the contrary, the girl is not in the slightest discouraged. She wants you just as you are, just as she met you. And she wants to be married now. And your problem is quite a difficult one. We haven't talked about the number of pounds that you will have to reduce, but we can all see your size, and the poundage that you will have to take off will be considerable, probably about 100 pounds,
That's just
if I am not far wrong. And that's not going to be an easy task. And to do it, it's going to take quite some time, quite some determination, and quite some concentration. And here is a girl who is willing to marry you under your present circumstances because she thinks she will be happy, and she wants you. She wants part of the glory of making that accomplishment because she's sure that you will feel better after you reduce. And I know how hard it is to reduce. And when you have the voice of authority, and I've been married for a long time, I mean by the voice of authority, the voice of your wife. When you reach for a piece of candy or you want a plate of ice cream, who says you can't have that, she's going to be a most material assistance to you. And I say that you're fortunate in having that kind of devotion to you. And I think that no matter how much you think of this girl, think a little bit of yourself. Accept her sacrifice. Consummate this marriage. Let her help you. I think you'll come nearer through success, and I think you'll both rejoice in it more than following out your scheme.
Well, now, do you think that the judge's viewpoint is consistent with your understanding of what should happen? Do you feel that this should be done together with this young woman who wants to marry you, or do you think that it's something that you have to do alone?
I feel that they are two separate and distinct situations, Judge. I appreciate your feeling for us and the situation, but I've been with this for many, many years, and I can consider myself just about an authority when it comes to weight. I mean, who knows better than somebody who's afflicted with the situation? I have a pretty logical understanding of my problem here, and I found that with all the people who love me and the family and the friends who want me to lose weight, it still rests within my own hand not to pick up the fork and eat something that I shouldn't eat.
That's quite true, but it's also evident that you haven't restrained yourself yet to the extent where you've reduced. And so why don't you try it with a marital status rather than a single status to see if it won't bring success where you have up till now nothing but failure?
Well,
That's the advantage according to the judge. Now, what's the disadvantage in having a wife under those circumstances?
Well, it's just just the words "try it." I don't like that. That doesn't sound right for to get into a marriage with it, just like trying something.
Well, Larry, but we know we want to get married no matter what the situation is. We know this as an initial fact, so that it's not a matter of just trying it in this way. It's a matter of just of trying with this problem, and maybe it's an extra problem, but I'm certainly willing to face it and take it on and help you.
You know what makes this situation so unusual? If it were the opposite, if the girl were saying, no, I will not marry him until he keeps his vow, until he reduces 100 pounds, we would have an easy problem. But this is the opposite phase of it, her devotion to you, her desire to help, her willingness to consummate it now because of her great admiration for you is something that will help you bring about what you want to accomplish.
Well, now we address the respondent. We all understand that the judge is giving his blessing here, and he'd like to see this wonderful marriage. But do you feel that there may be some disillusionment here that he's not thinking about during that first year, that you want to avoid, that you want to go into the marriage in a year so that all of these aspects are reduced, if not entirely removed?
That is certainly my feeling. I do want to start with a so-called clean slate. There are so many problems in today's very hectic living that make an extra added burden such as this is, and just in my saying that it is, it just makes it very difficult to go into a marriage that way. And it's not as though I'm not saying, or I am saying that we'll just wait and see what happens. I say a year, and I am a determined man, and it will be a year. If I had said some nebulous time, like sometime in the future, but I didn't say
You
that.
mean a year when you'll be able to be 100 pounds lighter?
That's correct.
Ms. Peterson?
Seems to me that the young woman's feeling is fine to feel the confidence that she can help, but I can't help agreeing with the man that it's something that he has to work out for himself because he feels that he has to work it out for himself. And I also think that with our general ideas of love that we're brought up to, and that love is enough to do everything, that young women in this country especially are very often convinced that love can conquer all, and that all you have to do is to be willing to do something, to be able to pull it off. And then when the real difficulties come in marriage, this feeling that love conquers all often collapses, because you need much more than love. And if there's reluctance on the part of the man, I don't think all the love in the world is going to overcome his reluctance to go into it. I don't think a woman should force a man to go against his instinct, especially when she has the knowledge that he loves her. I think she should wait until he says so, because I think she'll feel better in her pride and in her dignity inside if she waits till he's ready.
Well, I certainly have tried, to understand, and I think I do understand at least partially why, he feels he must do it himself. It's a matter of something within himself. But then again, I certainly don't have the attitude, of love conquers all and the knight in shining armor coming along and this is it. Because I certainly am facing this problem as realistically as he is, as much so as I can, not being in the situation, in his particular physical situation myself. And I still maintain that I can help him lose this because, as I say, we've been going together for almost 3 years. And in this time, it was only about 6 months ago that an actual proposal came up, and since that time we've been beating this back and forth. But nonetheless, if he were going to lose it before, and if he has wanted to lose the weight all this time, he has not been able to do so thus far. And I think that maybe with him, in a marital relationship, that perhaps a lot more can be accomplished and in perhaps a quicker time. And certainly we've discussed this back and forth, and that's why we're here, is to try to get an objective viewpoint.
Well, can one ask, has he begun? Have you begun to try and lose weight, or are you waiting until this problem between you and the young woman is decided?
No, I did start about 3 weeks ago.
You did start.
Mm-hmm.
And would you mind telling us, just in passing, whether you were at all successful?
Oh, yes, I've lost 26 pounds in the last 3 weeks.
Well, at that rate, it shouldn't take too long.
Well, the first pounds are the easiest. It's those
The last.
last 6 that are painful.
I'm going to ask you if you won't be frank with the members of this board, because after all, the board is trying to arrive at truth and give you an objective, detached viewpoint. And I ask this direct question of you, and you're a very frank and realistic person. Do you really feel that in the intimate relationship of marriage, that it would be just placing you at a disadvantage in many ways that this young woman does not understand, if you were to be her husband during this period, that you would rather do this yourself, and that you now have a specific incentive, because before there wasn't an incentive. You hadn't proposed. This is a fairly recent proposal, and she hadn't accepted. Now this is all decided, and you've lost 26 pounds in 3 weeks. Is it for this reason, your fear that with all the tensions of marriage, this will be just too much and it may destroy the marriage? Is that why you don't want to do it?
Well, that's my feeling. It's just that, as I repeat, unless a person knows the involvement of an overweight person, you can liken it to something as painful as dope or alcohol. The need and the craving is not as physically important, because after an alcoholic the blood becomes saturated, his need is a physical need, not just a mental need. It's different in that respect, but still, the need and the craving is still there.
Yes.
And it's if you must approach this with as little anxiety as possible.
And would the fact that you were married give you greater anxiety?
Well, I'm not having been married.
Well, isn't that
I
what
don't
your
know,
premise?
but I assume that this would be true. Yes.
Well, it would be more embarrassing, you feel?
Well, we have a pretty free relationship. It's very comfortable with her, but it's still a matter of being comfortable with myself. This is most important to me.
His main motive for this reduction might possibly disappear in this program, and if this young woman, for whom I have very great sympathy, wants really to help him the most, and since this is an emotional rather than a medical problem, it seems to me that the thing to do is to give the man his chance and wait for that period, and then there'll be a
that isn't
marriage.
clear. Give his man the man
A chance to carry out his program for reducing, so that he can, in good conscience, enter into this marriage, as obviously he can't now.
Well, to sum up, with one dissenting vote, the board's opinion would appear to be influenced by the conviction of the man himself, that he would come into this marriage far better equipped to make it successful if this adjustment were made not only physically, not only in actual poundage and all that means, but emotionally, that notwithstanding the romantic faith of this young woman, that the realistic aspects, when actually faced, would be quite another thing. Now, the majority of the board is constrained to hold with the man in this case, and I'm sure believes in his sincerity and in the future of this relationship. It's been said that money has feet and walks away, but good thoughts go on forever. You know, somebody said in reply to a complaint on the constant struggle, the never-ending procession of factors which make life often difficult and burdensome, nothing worth possessing is ever easily possessed.